Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to our panel discussion today. I'm Kathy Cronin, and joining me is Susan Jarboe, Karen Downy, Dr. Kristine Pass, and Reverend Linda Burdett. I'm going to lead today's topic, but I'd like to take a moment for us to get centered and focused on being in this present moment, to opening ourselves to the wisdom and guidance that's there. So to do that, to get centered, focus on your breathing. You take a deep breath in, hold that for just a moment, and then release that breath. To release the breath, you can feel the tension leave your body. You can feel the relaxation. And you can know that being here in this present moment is you're giving yourself that permission. So let's take another deep breath in. Fill our lungs with the spirit. And exhale with a sigh. And with this, I want to call upon Spirit. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask you to join with us today, to be among us in this present moment for your guidance, your wisdom. We know that we are being enlightened with the Spirit to share that which is ours to share and opening ourselves to the love that surrounds us. We are so thankful for the many blessings, for this opportunity, and for those who take the time to join us and listen to this video. We are grateful that you have blessed us this day, and we are thankful for being here. Amen. So my topic today is being taken from the Unity Booklet, Living Abundantly, Embrace Your Unlimited Good. And I picked the article that was written about change gracefully. And Reverend Evin Wilkins wrote this article, and I would like to share the writing and then open it to discussion with the panel. Ever notice how a leaf just effortlessly floats along with the breeze? It doesn't fight, doesn't kick and scream, doesn't try to change direction. It just floats along without any kind of resistance, allowing the breeze to place it where it lands. In a sense, it's open to the change that the wind brings. Change. Just as surely as the wind blows, change is going to happen. To love it or fear it makes little difference, because just as surely as the leaves are going to blow, change is going to happen. In fact, it's often necessary for change to happen in our lives. So I'm going to share a story here about a boy, and this is what Reverend Wilkins writes. Change used to make this boy feel as if he had been knocked off his feet. As he grew older, he began to realize that he felt this way because change wasn't something he often faced during his childhood. He had grown up in the same house, attended the same schools and church, and saw the same friends and family most every day. As a result, there wasn't much reason to worry about change. It certainly didn't seem to find him often, and he didn't feel much need to seek it out. Until one day the boy had an experience that would change his life forever. You see, others had never seen him as the boy that he was. Others hadn't seen that boy covered in dirt and mud after a hard day at play. Others hadn't seen that boy who loved to chase the girls with insects and other squiggly things they so desperately tried to escape. Others hadn't seen the snaggle-toothed boy smiling proudly, revealing spaces between his two front teeth, where his two front teeth had once been. Others had only seen what that boy had kept hidden for many years, something he had always known, yet feared others wouldn't understand. Others had only seen what someone else had determined him to be. It was a pronouncement from the doctor shortly after birth, a pronouncement that resulted in him being labeled as a female on his birth certificate. As a result, he'd grown up in skin that never quite seemed to fit. He remembered lying in his bed at night, shaking his fist at the ceiling in an attempt to scold a god he once believed to be outside himself. Scolding this god, demanding that it makes things right, demanding that it change him into the boy he knew he was. As he grew into adulthood, he learned that he must conform to the lens of society or risk being ostracized by family, friends, and those he passed on the street. Yet the pain remained. Then one day his life changed. He came across a story on television, a documentary about four brave transgender people being willing to share their stories and their journeys. Four brave souls allowed the public into their inner sanctuaries, into their innermost thoughts and feelings. And the boy knew. He knew he was one of them. He began to finally experience the change that had always been missing from his life, the change that one day transformed the lonely caterpillar into the beautiful butterfly he'd always been on the inside. I know this boy well because this boy, now a man, is me. He is always me. He has been my constant companion through my journey of life, the gentle nudge of a person who knew he must navigate the world in his own special, authentic way. He taught me about change and how to steer my way through the obstacles that sometimes accompany change. And in the process, he made me stronger for it. He gave me all the strength I need to embrace any change that now comes my way. And much like that leaf upon the wind, I now effortlessly float, ready to land and to change gracefully whenever I am placed. So he brings up some reflections on change that I want to share and put these reflections to the panel. As we know, change may be necessary, but that doesn't make it easy. Think about a time when you were faced with an unexpected, possibly life-altering change. How did that change make you feel? Did you feel fear? If so, how did you navigate your way through that fear? Use these past episodes as an anchor. Think back to times when you felt fear, but at the same time, remember, you are divine and within your divine nature, have all the power and resilience you need to handle any situation. For me, that anchor helps keep me grounded, knowing I can move ahead in faith. How might your previous life changes help you in times of present and future changes? And the third question he poses, breathe when change brings feelings of fear, because it brings you into the present moment. And in the present moment, you will know there is nothing to fear and all is well. One of my favorite exercises is to close my eyes and inhale while counting to 3. I then gently hold my breath for a count of 3 and then exhale for the same count of 3. I usually feel relaxed after repeating these 3 to 4 times, more or less as needed. You will feel relaxed and connected to the present moment and the divine within. So I'm going to ask the panel to share their reflections on change. We're in a change that came over them in their lifetime, the fear that they felt going through that change, and how did they navigate through that change. And so I would like to hear who would like to share first on changes that they have gracefully embraced.
I'll start. That's a powerhouse topic for sure, Kathy. Um, the first thing that came to my mind as you were reading, and change is definitely not always graceful. That's for sure. And the first thing that came up, I wrote down marriage. And I just remember over the 30 years of being married, oh my God, the different traumas. And having to change or having to accept, and then finally walking from the marriage after 30 years. And the change of being single, being alone, um, and at the time, I remember he's deceased now, but my younger brother Christopher said, "Sis, are you sure you're ready for this? Because it's not easy out here." And and so all of the changes that come from going from being married, making the settlements and going our different ways, so many changes. Um, and then the most recent, you know, is the accident I had 5 years ago. It was like totally unexpected and a complete change of letting go of everything I thought was going on and moving back to Pueblo and starting over again. And change isn't easy. Um, it's mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional. I think more so now I can welcome the unknown because it keeps happening. And it's I think if nothing's changing in my life, I'm stagnant. And I came from a family that, my dad, as though he was giving a good message, if I would call, he would say, "Everything's the same here, honey. Nothing ever changes." As if that was a stability thing. Well, actually, as I look back, that was pretty unstable and pretty stuck because anything that's growing is changing. And like right now, a lot of change going on is really messy. Um, it's not always done with grace and acceptance, but it's a fact. And so if things are changing, I can count on I'm growing one way or another. And so is everything else. Nothing stays the same. Thank you. Thank you for that. And my ex-husband and I are, I wouldn't say like close friends. However, we stay in touch. So just because there's a big change or divorce doesn't mean all bad things. It's up to me how the pieces all settle.
Well, thank you, Karen. I appreciate you sharing that. Susan, would you like to go next?
Sure. I really like the word grace. Uh, Years ago, when I was taking care of my very ill husband, a friend of mine said to me, "You do such a good job of taking care of him." And I said, "I wish I could do it with more grace without being irritated, at domineering nurses and so on and so forth." And so, grace with change is something that I've always strived for and rarely achieved. When I think about change, I think of things coming into my life, and I also think of things leaving my life. Um, in the past couple of years, I've lost several friends who have made their transition. And those changes, um, in some ways, they're easy to accept, but they're not easy to live with because I miss them. And there's a hole inside where they used to be. Um, I can look at changes coming into my life, like buying a new refrigerator. that was a wonderful change. My whole kitchen looks different. And what what I need to work on in my life is that something can happen, and that means I need to do something about it, with or without God's help. Um, but it doesn't mean I have to get upset about it. I'm trying to tell myself or teach myself it's just a change. That's all it is. Now, I'm not always there. And I often pray to God for mercy as I go through various kinds of changes. So I really don't have any answers or anything wise to say. But I thank you for bringing up this subject because, it's one I cope with every day.
Oh, thank you, Susan. And you did add so much more when you basically talked about how dealing with your husband's illness and how you wanted to do it with grace. Just there's sometimes when changes are happening, things around us is like, how do we do this with grace and, ease? And so that was I liked how you shared that part. But yeah, change is happening around us and, can we navigate through it? So Dr. Kristine.
Thank you. I so appreciate the fact that you had this particular reading. I have a transgender granddaughter, and knowing some of those issues that took place for her as she made changes in her life from the beginning journey when she was a teenager to where she is now. Um, it meant a lot to hear you were giving voice to that whole entire community, and I am so very appreciative of that. In terms of my own experience with change, I've talked about this before. I was bedbound for 8 months, and I had to learn during that time how to be very satisfied with very, very tiny little things. A number on the clock, some event that, might a bird, pecking at the window or something, whatever. It didn't matter. Whatever tiny little thing it was, I found my happiness there. And continue to feel, even in that change, that I was a functioning part of society in my own teeny tiny way. But then when I got better, I kind of had the flip side of this, and I had to adjust to the change of being healthy, which doesn't sound like it would be a bad thing, but it really was a struggle at times because suddenly you go from where you spend a lot of time sleeping to you've got more energy, but what are you supposed to do with it? And that seems like a silly problem. And yet it was a really big problem for me for quite a while because what did I do with it? I wasn't so energetic that I was going to go tackle big projects. And and yet I definitely had more. I didn't want to be napping all the time. And so I had to learn what that change was like. Um, and another part of the change that happened for me as I got better was, oh, this is hard to admit, was that when people asked me to do things, I was very accustomed to not doing things. I didn't go anywhere. Or if I woke up and maybe my anxiety was a little high or something, you know, everybody understood because I'd been sick for so long. But as I started getting better, then there was that expectation to do more, and I couldn't use that as an excuse anymore. And I had to make that decision. Was I going to embrace this change, truly embrace this change of getting healthier and learning how to say, I just don't want to do this, you know, or, you know, was I going to fall back on, oh no, I don't feel well today. And oh my gosh, that was that was probably harder for me than it was to be sick. Um, Karen said that change isn't easy. And it's so true, it's not easy. In my case, I have found that even though it hasn't been easy, it has been an incredible blessing. So thank you for this.
Change gracefully. I've gotten better with change overall when I learn to understand the process that I go through when I'm going through change and allowing me to be me and not worrying so much about what it looks like on the outside helps me to be much more graceful in dealing with change. I often start with resistance. I have some natural resistance to change, and often there's a grieving process that goes on, even with a good change. Karen was talking about marriage, major change. And we don't always recognize that a change like that comes with a loss. We've lost our individuality. We've lost our individual um, identities. Sometimes we lose our last name and where we live. And even though this is supposed to be a really exciting, wonderful time, new life begin, it comes for me with a period of grieving and allowing myself to grieve what was is how I visualize ending that chapter. And if I end the chapter clearly, then I'm open for the next chapter. And you know, that's just part of the process that I go through in a change, and even a good change, something I've been waiting for and so excited about, comes with a process. Sometimes it's bigger, sometimes it's smaller, but giving myself room to react and prepare is very helpful for me in making changes with grace, which we could call it all kinds of things, but let's go with grace. That sounds lovely. I also had the opportunity to walk through the transition of a transgender friend. And I tell you, that change is expensive. It takes a lot of courage. It's just, I'm in absolute awe of people who are able to go that far in claiming their true identity and their true self. You hear a lot of different things about it in pop culture, but in reality, it's just an incredible change. And claiming your true self that hard is something I really admire. So I wanted to throw out that too. Thank you so much for this topic.
Well, thank you, Reverend Linda, and thank you, Dr. Kristine. And also sharing the fact that the story that this author, Reverend Wilkins went through with their own personal journey, that knowing there are people out there and the courage that it takes for them to, stand up to their identity and to find that along the way. We cannot understand the depth of that, but we can be loving and supportive that it takes a lot of courage to go through that change. And so it's sort of that thing. And, one of the things that it brought up and I put out there is like, a life altering change in your life. And what I want to share for myself was basically I grew up this very chubby, fat little girl who was always ridiculed from the time she was little. I was pretty much a normal 5-year-old, had my tonsils taken out. And by the time I was 6, I weighed 100 pounds. And from there on, the weight kept going up and up. And and in high school, I'd go on, I called it the diet pills and Coke and Diet Pepsi and potato chip diet to lose weight just so I could fit in, so I could feel like I belonged. Here I was a teenager and I wanted to feel like I belonged. And I was always, made, I can remember as, being not picked to be on the teams, not, because I was fat and along the way. And the life altering change that I did was that about 20 years ago, I made the decision that I was, I'd been on diets and lost and gained, lost and gained, lost and gained, and saw this yo-yo effect that I had the gastric bypass surgery. And talk about a life-changing change. You basically go through starvation because there's just hardly anything you can eat along the way. I always tell people that is the hardest diet I've ever been on because it's like for a year, you can't have any salads, you can't have any citrus, you can't have any beef. You're basically living on liquids for a year as you watch everybody else around you eating. You're like doing it. And I dropped 140 pounds in that period of time. And it was sort of that aspect. And then the changes. I'd look in the mirror and it wasn't me. I didn't see me. I couldn't understand who it was. My husband and our relationship changed because I wasn't the person he married. He married this rotund little thing, and now I was just like skin hanging onto my bones, and and I still wasn't thin yet, I still had a ways to go, but so I still could not see that, but it was sort of like, here I went through this, almost lost my life from the surgery to get to be the size 10 that I've always been striving to be, because I figured then I'd be loved by people, I'd be accepted, I'd be, a part of the group. And, so I had to do this. And just to find that it was like, I didn't like who I was. I didn't look in the mirror and see me. And who was this person that was looking back at me? And then I can also remember through that life changing, our old habits still come back. I remember I went shopping and I bought a whole bunch of candy and goodies and hid it in the back of the pantry. And I finally had to take my husband by the hand and said, I have to show you something. It was, I'm an addict and I am hiding this because I'm still, even though I can't eat this stuff, and I know I'm going to get sick if I eat it, and the whole aspect of that, but I still have to have it. I want to have it. And he used to always tease me about, just give me a vein, give her a vein, she needs her sugar fix. And over the time from that change, because I couldn't accept me, even though I had been chastised, I've gained that weight back because I had to come back to the Kathy I knew. And it was sort of like, and I gave into the addiction, the sugar cravings and the addiction and things like that. So I found that back. So now it's like, here I'm looking at this 20 years later, and it's like, why did I go through that change just to come back to be where I am? Where now I come to the fact of acceptance of, God didn't, this isn't what I was intended to be. If God wanted me to be, I always say, I'm not overweight. I'm just 6 inches too short for my weight. It's sort of is like that aspect of knowing and accepting who I am, and rather than trying to change, to be something that society is the norm that will accept, is just accepting myself. And that's part of that change, along with changing gracefully, is that acceptance of ourselves, who we are, where we're at, the people around us, accepting them where they're at. And change happens along the way. So that was my, life altering change, and how it changed my aspect of how I see. Now what I do is I choose to eat to be healthy. And no matter what the scale says, if I'm eating healthy and doing the things to make the choices to be healthy, then I don't have to go through that total starvation, and to be accepted, to feel like then I'll be loved. If I'm a size 10, then I'll be loved. Well, I have to love myself as I am, and that's the purpose I am. So I hope what everyone shared today, and opened something up for those who have joined us, came to this. It's, we all face, like it says, it's like that wind that is going to blow that leaf. Well, winds are going to change direction for us in our lives, that we will have changes through our lives and how we go through it. And as he shared at the very end, is just when change comes, just take a breath, get present in the moment, and be accepting of what it is and move through it with grace and ease. So I want to thank everybody today. And anybody else have anything they want to share or add to this? If not, I will close this out. Well, we are so blessed that you have taken the time out of your day to join us today. If you liked what we shared, if it touched a certain spot with you, you can do the leave comments. We are open to hearing from our viewers. And if there's a topic you want to have us discuss, or you have some input on something, we'd love to have you join our panel. Even if you want to do it as a one-time, or become a permanent. At the end of this video, there's a thing on how you can reach out to Unity of El Cajon to let us know, and we can, Reverend Linda can make connection with you, to be a part of this panel, sharing your thoughts. We always look forward to the feedback, and I am so grateful for these lovely ladies that joined me today and shared from their heart, and we are so blessed to have everyone here. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful and blessed day.
Thank you for joining us, and let's stay connected and grow in spirit. We are on Facebook. Search for Unity Church of El Cajon and follow us and like our posts. You can reach us on YouTube at Unity Church of El Cajon. Please subscribe to our channel, watch our videos, and leave comments, which can help us improve. We are on the web at unityofelcajon.org. Email or call our church office to receive our weekly newsletters, which lists all of our activities and opportunities to learn and grow together.